Welcome, everyone. Thank you for tuning in for another journey, another episode of OG Talk. This is Chase, and good morning to all of you. It's a breezy, nice 32-degree day here in New Jersey. It's a little chilly Tuesday, and as always, or at least for this year, with this channel, I take it a couple of ways, right? Although it's a spiritual channel, I guess, in that we take things to a different place, a deeper place than what's on the surface. We're also human beings, right? And today I want to talk about regret. Having regret in your life. As I'm growing and getting older, of course, right? I'm learning that we really shouldn't live with any regrets. Because when we're placed on this planet, y'all, we have no idea. We are just plants, basically. And we grow depending on our environment, so to speak. So if generationally you have things in your bloodline that, may have been, a generational curse, let's say, right? Let's say if it was alcohol, if, the men in your family, the women in your family, the adults, all were big drinkers, more than likely you're going to be a big drinker. Therefore, raised in that environment, you're probably going to do things in life that you will later regret. You follow the timeline. So here's the thing that I feel about regret. In my own life, I used to have regrets about things that I feel like I didn't do well. I did 3 years of college, had to quit my last year because, I was supporting myself. The job I was at, kind of closed down, and, I couldn't afford to go to college my 4th year. I wanted to be a history teacher, if you believe that. And I thought, that was going to be my way of contributing to society because I loved history. I loved learning about, I was an American history major, and I loved learning about, things that happened in the past, wars, etc. So, for a long time, I wanted to be a teacher, but I never went back and, went back to college. And I realized that, on a teacher's salary, that probably wasn't going to make it anyway. But I thought that was my way of contributing. Not finishing college was a regret of mine. I now realize that it didn't really mean anything at the end of the day. That's not something to regret. The experiences I had in college were things I had to learn from, the people I met, the diversity. I come from a hood background, mostly black urban community. So when I went to college, I had never seen or interacted, I shouldn't say seen, but interacted with so many people of different cultures. So in those 3 years that I spent in college, while getting excellent grades, financially I couldn't support myself. The experiences and the people that I met would mold me later on down the line. The experiences I had, being out as an adult for the first time in the world, experiencing women, experiencing drugs and alcohol and violence and just mayhem, the quiet things that go on in college that nobody talks about. I experienced all that. And later on, those decisions, some of those were things that I regretted, but now I see it as a blessing. One of the things I regretted was, past relationships. I'm divorced. right? I got divorced way back in, over 10 years now. 13 years now, I believe, yes. And I used to have regrets about my marriage, not because there was like infidelity or things like that. I mean, I'm sure that was all, not because of why we broke up or why my marriage dissolved. I have regrets because I couldn't fix it. I felt like that was something I could have fixed, even though I was the one that filed for the divorce. But I have regrets because I had grown very close to my stepson, who was with me for 8 years, and it was heartbreaking I don't really talk about this, but it was heartbreaking on my soul to, have to walk away from that situation because the mom was just hell-bent on destroying my life at the time. So I couldn't continue a relationship with my stepson because me and the mom just, and it didn't work out like that. So I regretted the dissolving of my marriage at the time. But 13 years later, I can look back and say I have no regrets about it because I had to experience that type of woman in my life. I had to experience the highs and lows of what a marriage is to be able to help people later on. So, when I have friends now or people come to me and they're going through rough times in their relationship, I could relate, So don't live with regrets, man. They're experiences, they're learning experiences. If it didn't go your way, it was nothing you could do to make it go your way. It was just sometimes in life, it's your turn to lose. And it's your turn to learn. When you take a L, look at it more of a learning experience rather than a loss, because I couldn't see it at the time, and I didn't want to get divorced. I had to for my own mental health, and the things that was happening to me in this relationship. It was driving me I'm not gonna say that word, but it was a point where I didn't want to continue with my life because of what was happening in my marriage. This person had broke me down to a point that I didn't even recognize myself anymore. And but I don't have regrets about it. So if you're struggling with things that may have happened, or relationships or job opportunities, or people screwed you over and all of that, man, let me tell you, it wasn't your fault. It wasn't your fault. It was just your turn to learn that lesson. And anything that you go through, please, 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 even if you take it as an L, learn from it. Try to learn from it, Think of it more as a learning opportunity. Don't have regrets. I don't, I have things with my child that, I sometimes wish, I shouldn't say wish, but like, I just didn't like the way I handled the relationship with my daughter's mom. We were very young at the time, but I was immature, and I'm not the man that I am now. Do I look back at that with regret? Nah. I used to. But then I realized that, my daughter's mom is with the man that she was supposed to be with all along. That was her soulmate. I wasn't. And that's why it worked out the way it worked out, but I don't have regrets over it. It's certain things I wish I would have did better, but I'm not regretful, because you can only take the information that you have. We all make moves based on the information that we have at the time. And hopefully we're all doing everything, for the betterment of our families and stuff like that. But don't have regret, man. If you didn't finish school, if you never went to school, if you didn't finish whatever, if you don't have a good relationship with your child, if you did things screwed up, Don't have regrets about it. Either fix it or move on, because that was just a section of your life. And you got a billion things other to experience. Why get hung up on the one that you may not have handled as well? You know? Don't live in the prison of regret, man. Because it'll sabotage your life. And you don't want that. They're just learning lessons that we all have to go through. Every human being has to learn to ascend. So you are going to take L's, and but they're learning lessons. They aren't losses. Because at the end of the day, we all return home with nothing. No matter how much you got saved in the bank, no matter how much you got in your portfolio and you did this and you did that, guess what? At the end of the day, you become nothing. You become right back one with Source. So if you can't keep any of the things here with you, why are they so important? Even with things that you did wrong, if you made a bad decision, you made a mistake, man, repent on it and move on. Don't hold on to that, because it will grip you and you won't be able to get out of it. And every day, y'all, we choose what type of attitude that we're gonna have for that day. And let's just choose a positive one if we have a choice over it. And I believe that we all do. But don't live with regret, man. I love each and every one of you. Stay strong out there. Peace.